If you suspect you've been with a covert or vulnerable narcissist, you may have felt like you've heard your story told all over the internet by different people. This is because the covert narcissist uses tactics that seem like they almost come out of a playbook. And in this video, we're going to talk about 9 of those tactics with 9 subtle signs of a covert narcissist. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Common Ego community. My name is Christina. On this channel, we talk about emotional abuse, spirituality, and self-development. Today, we're talking about 9 subtle signs of the covert narcissist. And I want to point out that these aren't signs that you're going to use to diagnose someone with covert narcissism. These are behaviors that you'll see very often in a covert narcissist. So if you've been in a relationship with somebody who you believe is a covert narcissist, you are probably going to relate to most of this list. So like I said, not diagnosing anyone. However, if someone does exhibit all of these behaviors and shows no signs of changing or wanting to change, the behaviors that we're talking about here are largely abusive and all around just not good. They're not characteristics that you would really want in a partner. So if you're seeing all of these signs, this is probably a relationship that you want to take a closer look at. And if you're just starting to learn about narcissism, I have a free download that might help you. In this guide, I talk about the phases of a relationship with a narcissist. And there are really 4 phases. Sometimes there are 3, sometimes there are 4. And I go through all of those with checklists in this download. So check that out in the description box below. So let's jump into the first subtle sign of covert narcissism. And that is that this person is somebody who has everything figured out all the time. Now, the smartest among us know that we don't have the answers all of the time and that we always have something to learn from other people. But the covert narcissist is a little bit different. They like to have the answers. And not only that, but they will put somebody else down if they disagree. So this is the type of person who is in the habit of assigning right and wrong to issues that have a lot of gray area and a lot of nuance to them. But if you are on the opposite side of them, you are wrong. Similarly, if you believe the same thing they do, you are smart and you're right. But the minute you disagree with them, the minute you have a different opinion from them, that's when you're going to fall into the dumb category. You're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. So things are always very black and white. There is no gray area here. Either you're with them or you're against them. Either you're smart or you're stupid. The second subtle sign of covert narcissism was one that I've talked about recently in a video, and that is they are moral gatekeepers. So they have this moral code that they live by. And they may have adopted it from religion or spirituality. But the difference between the covert narcissist and someone else who lives by maybe even the same moral code is that they don't practice what they preach. So these people are going to shame you for living in a way that essentially this person is also living. Maybe in different ways, but they're also not following the rules. But you get shamed for it and they get a free pass. And why do they get a free pass? Because, well, they were justified in their behavior. It's a different story. So the third subtle sign of covert narcissism is that their actions and their words are not aligned. And this is consistent. So this goes along with the moral gatekeeping in that they would be happy to tell you how you're supposed to live your life, but they don't live their lives in the same way, not even close. So it is kind of that do as I say, not as I do. But this actions and words out of alignment shows up in so many different ways. One very common way that this shows up is in the apology without changed behavior. So they say that they're sorry, but they don't act like they're sorry. They might even make you feel like you did something wrong as they're giving you this apology. And the only time you'll get an apology, if you even do, from a covert or a vulnerable narcissist, is when they need something from you. So this might be in the love bombing or idealization phase of the relationship, and it might be in the hoovering phase of the relationship, which is kind of like love bombing or idealization coming back up again. So they need you as supply. They need you back in their lives to validate them. But they know that they're not going to get you back without addressing the behavior that you're so upset about. Now, they think that they were justified for their behavior and they don't owe you any apologies, but they're going to go ahead and give you that apology anyway because it's going to get them what they want. And of course, you'll notice that there won't be any changed behavior. They're just going to go back to exactly the way they were before. And furthermore, if you bring up that apology in an effort to get yourselves on the right track again, they're only going to get angry with you. So if you say something like, do you remember you apologized for this and you said that, you shouldn't be treating me this way? They're going to get angry and they're going to say something like, you're always bringing up the past. And instead of acknowledging that they're doing the same thing again, it's your fault that this is coming up again. And again, they're justified for their behavior, which is what they thought all along, and the apology was never sincere. So this shows up in other ways too, big ways and small ways. It can show up in saying that they love you and not acting like they love you. You may also notice a narcissist saying that they are the most honest person in the world, but yet they are lying to your face. Their actions and their words are not aligned, and you know it on some level. You may know it on every level, but at the very least, your gut is telling you that there's something off here. So the next subtle sign of covert narcissism is that they kind of seem a little bit needy and they seem vulnerable, but they act like they don't need you at all. Like you are the last person in the world that they would need for anything. Unless, of course, they're actively idealizing you and they want you to feel loved and needed. That is an exception to the rule. So the fifth subtle sign of covert narcissism is that they are passive-aggressive. These are extremely passive-aggressive people because unlike their grandiose counterparts, they don't really feel comfortable putting it all out there. They have a lot of contempt that's bubbling up inside at all times. But the way it comes out with the covert or vulnerable narcissist is almost always passive aggressive. So it might be silent treatment, it might be stonewalling, it might be subtle digs, jokes at your expense. It's always something they can hide behind. They can retreat. If things are getting a little bit too confrontational and they're starting to look like the bad guy, they can retreat back into whatever it is that they're doing. So the sixth subtle sign of covert narcissism is that you feel like no matter how long you're with this person, you feel like you don't really know them on a deep level. You've probably had other relationships where you feel connected with someone. And at some point, you probably did feel connected with a covert narcissist. And this is usually in the idealization phase. But that does go away. When the idealization goes away, so does the connection. And it's off. It feels almost like, they snap their fingers and suddenly all of this is gone. The bottom dropped out. And this is an unusual and confusing feeling in a relationship because that's not something that typically happens. Usually when you have a connection with someone, you have a connection with them and that's it. You may go through periods where you feel more connected or less connected, but it's unusual to just have the bottom drop out unless there's something that you learn about the person that maybe you didn't know before. Like maybe they were faking all along and that the connection wasn't real. And so with the covert narcissist, you don't necessarily know this on a deep level. It's not always like something comes to the surface and you can point to it and say, look at this, you lied to me about this, this, and this, and there is irrefutable evidence and you are not the person that I thought I was connected with. Really, it happens on a much more subtle level and you just end up kind of confused. Like, I thought we had this good connection and now we don't. And you start blaming yourself. Maybe it's something that I did. And the covert narcissist will jump in with all the things that you did or that they think you did to blame you for what was inevitable. This was going to happen no matter what you did if you're with a covert narcissist. So you kind of get the feeling like this person is shallow, like there's not a whole lot of depth to them. And that's because there really isn't a whole lot of depth that they can access. And the seventh subtle sign of covert narcissism is related, and that is that you feel lonely around them. Now, this is partially because of number 6, because there's not a whole lot of depth there, and it's partially because of the abuse. It's because they give what they think is love. They give attention, admiration, emotional support, and then they take it away. And while they're doing this, you're acknowledging, you're recognizing that this person doesn't have a whole lot of depth, or at least they don't have a lot of depth that they're showing you. So when you're in a room with a covert narcissist, you might feel like you're alone. And again, part of that is about the abuse. Part of it is because they want you to feel that way. They want you to feel lonely, and they want you to feel like you don't matter. Now, I've mentioned this experience in one of my older videos, and a lot of you stepped up and said that you've had the exact same experience, which is interesting. And it kind of goes back to that playbook. It's amazing how so many of us have so many of the exact same specific experiences. So the experience I'm talking about is being in a room with someone who completely fits the bill of a covert narcissist, and you're watching television together. And suddenly, out of nowhere, this person gets up, turns off the television, turns off the lights, and goes to bed. But you were still watching the show without a word, without any conversation. They just left and turned off the television. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't imagine doing that to someone. I have turned off lights. Because it's kind of habit, especially like if you're in the bathroom, you leave, you turn off the light, and if somebody's still in there, you have to go back and turn it back on. So I get that to an extent, but to be sitting literally next to someone and to have them act like you are literally not there, like you're a ghost, that can make you feel very lonely. And it's behavior like that that makes you feel very lonely when you're with a covert narcissist. So the 8th subtle sign that you're with a covert narcissist is that they can't handle no. They cannot handle being told no to something that they really want. Now, depending on who you are dealing with, they might be able to handle no if it's something they really don't care about. But if it's something they really want, they are going to push back. And what you're going to see really is akin to an adult tantrum. And this is also a red flag that you can look for in a relationship early on. So if you're with somebody and you're thinking that there might be some red flags, you might want to try this one out just to see how they handle no, how they handle not necessarily rejection, but not getting their way, because really we can't always get our way. And it's definitely better to know early on if you're dealing with somebody like this who cannot handle not getting their way, because that's going to lead to a lot of different things that do not go to any place good. And the 9th subtle sign of covert narcissism is that you feel like you're walking on eggshells around this person. So now this is kind of like they can dish it out, but they can't take it kind of energy, because this is somebody who is going to be abusive and they are going to point out all your faults and everyone else's faults. But the moment you have something to talk to them about, the moment you want to point out that maybe they shouldn't call you names, or you don't like when they talk to you a certain way. Now, these are boundaries that you are setting. This isn't criticizing the other person, but still their ego cannot handle you saying that they should be doing anything other than what they're doing, even if what they're doing is trampling your boundaries. So you're going to walk on eggshells around this person. And sometimes you might not even say anything when they cross boundaries, when they make you feel bad. Even when you know they're lying to you, you might not say something because you know they're just going to explode. And sometimes it's easier to just let it go. So even if you know their behavior's a little sketchy, even if they've cheated on you in the past and they come home and you know something's up, something's not right, there's always that decision. When you're with a covert narcissist for long enough, you always get to the point where it's a decision. Am I going to make a thing of this? Because I know it's not going to go anywhere. It's only going to frustrate me. This person's going to start screaming. Maybe things will get scary. And this person's never going to admit the truth anyway. So do I want to have peace tonight? Or do I want to speak my mind? And sometimes you'll choose peace and sometimes you'll speak your mind. But either way, there's that moment. Because even if you speak your mind, a lot of times you'll do it very, very gently. Like you're handling this person with kid gloves. It's like you're trying to diffuse a bomb without setting it off. You want to get your point across, but you don't want this bomb to explode in your face. And unfortunately, I don't know that there's any way to really do this effectively. When you're with a covert narcissist, they really just can't handle this type of thing. They can't handle you having boundaries. They can't handle you telling them that they've stepped on your boundaries. They can't handle you pointing out that they're clearly lying to you. When you get that gut feeling, something here doesn't make sense, that's when you start walking on eggshells. Because deep down, you know something's up, and not so deep down, you know how they're going to handle it. So those are 9 subtle signs of covert narcissism. Now, if you have dealt with a covert narcissist, I want to know how many of these signs you have experienced in your relationship. And don't forget, there is a free download that you can access in the description box below with checklists for each phase of a relationship with a narcissist. If you found this video helpful, you may also enjoy an older video I did on the 25 signs of covert narcissism. And I'm going to link to that right over here. As always, like, share, and subscribe if you did find this helpful, and I'll see you next time.